horror books, fantasy, thriller books, weird books. I read a lot of interesting things this month. So we're going to talk about everything I read in the month of March. Some were great and amazing, and some were not that great and not that amazing. The first thing I read was Such an Odd Word to Use by Carl Goodwin. And this book was just a short little novella, and it was very strange. This guy moves into this house. It used to be like an old music recording studio. One day he comes home, and his light bulb has been removed and is like sitting on his step up to his house. And he's like, oh, that's weird. Picks it up, puts it back in there. And then this happens again, only it looks like someone ripped out like the housing of it. And he's like, what the F? And then he meets his weird neighbor, and his neighbor was like, your light was blinking through my blinds and bothering me. And then the guy that lives in the house is like, oh, did you do this? And he's like, no, why would I do that? Mm-mm. Obviously that guy did that. And then it starts off this whole thing where like the guy who has moved into the music studio, it seems like he's being surveilled for some reason and he has no idea why. And so the premise, you're like, oh, this sounds good. It was so lackluster. Like there was no peaks, there was no dips. It was just straight the whole time. So there was no excitement. There was no like, you find out what happens at the end and you're like, oh, okay. And the only reason I think I kept reading it is because it was so short. So great idea, great premise. Even the writing was actually good writing, like the descriptiveness and everything. It just had no climax. It had no anything. It was just this like steady pace of whateverness. And so I just never really connected with the story or the characters or even finally finding out what was actually going on. You're just like, oh, okay, cool, I guess. It was okay. It wasn't bad. Wasn't good. After that, I read the second book in the series of We'll Prescribe You a Cat, and this is We'll Prescribe You Another Cat by Siu Ishida. This book was cute. It's cozy. I didn't love it in the way that I loved the first one, though. The first one I absolutely loved and adored. I thought it was wonderfully written and weird and emotional, and like you connected with it in a way that was just one of the better, like I've read a lot of books that have cats in them, and this one was like one of the better ones, but this one just kind of fell short. It felt kind of rushed. The story wasn't as cohesive as the last one. Like I said, it's still cozy and cute. If you like books with cats in them, it's an alright book, but I didn't love it in the way I loved the first one. And you know, sometimes the sequels of books just have a hard time living up to the first one. So what can you do? Next up, we read Hemlock and Silver by T. Kingfisher. This one was a slam dunk, home run, knock it out of the park kind of book. This is a Snow White retelling. Snow White is not one of my favorite fairy tales. It's okay, but this retelling that T. Kingfisher did is absolutely amazing. The story is weird and quirky. You have this healer. She is kind of a master of poisons, and you know, she tests the poisons on herself. You know, not to die, but to learn about them and to learn how to heal and find antidotes for them. And she got this fascination when she was younger, when she had this know-it-all cousin that she came and went to visit with her family. And like the cousin's like, oh, I bet you didn't know this. Oh, I bet you didn't know this. And like they're out on the land of, you know, the cousin's family. And he's like, oh, I bet you didn't know that carrots grow wild in the ground and that you can eat them. And he pulls out this carrot-looking root and he eats it. Oh, whoops, it's hemlock. And so a couple hours later, the cousin is dead. And the main character after that was like, wow, he was here 1 minute and gone the next. How is there no cure for this? And it kind of kicked off this like lifelong obsession and wanting to learn about poisons. So this starts her on this career path where at some point, the king of the land, his daughter Snow, is very ill and is dying. And she might be his last hope to find a cure for this. And so the healer comes to stay with the king and Snow, and she finds this whole world through the mirrors that are in the castle, and this just might be the key to what is the sickness that is causing Snow to die. And it's really weird, and what's going on the other side of the mirror, that's all like craziness, and it's so freaking good. I would highly recommend it. It is quite possibly one of my favorite T. Kingfisher books. This one and Snake Eater I read recently. Both of those are awesome. Okay, so after that one, we had one of the most disturbing books that I've read in quite some time, and that is Dead in the Water by John Mars. So the main character drowns and dies, and when he's brought back by his wife, who was going to school to be a paramedic, so she was able to save him, and he saw his life flash before his eyes. And everything he saw, he knew was true, but he also saw this boy that he was standing over that was dying, and he's like, did I hurt this person. He's like, I don't remember this. Why is this happening? And he becomes convinced that the only possible way he can get answers about this is to die again and again and again and be brought back. And each time he comes back, he brings another ghost with him. It's very highly disturbing, and it's a page turner. It is a very dark thriller. It is messed up, but I honestly couldn't put it down. So if that says anything, like, it's quite the overwhelming and dark and disturbing read. And one of these days I'm going to pick up something else by this author, because I've been told like they're not all that disturbing. The thing that disturbed me the most was this guy was like, I need to die again. I need to be killed again and then brought back. That part was messed up. Like, his whole psyche about it was like so effed up. And that was the part that was like so darkly disturbing to me. And then you start to get, when he does start to kind of figure out what happened in his past, that part's disturbing. But the disturbing part is that he just kept wanting to die over and over again. Like, because it was messing him up too, giving him all these different health problems and stuff. If you like disturbing books, I don't know, maybe you would like that one. After that one, I read a wonderfully magical fantasy book called The White Octopus Hotel by Alexandra Bell. This is by an author. She had another book called The Winter Garden that I read by her that I loved. This is my second experience of her writing, and she writes the most magical books ever. I've only read 2, but they're so imaginative and weird and strange. And this one has a whole strange like time travel element to it. So there's this woman. She is an antiques dealer. She doesn't really have any friends. Her sister died when she was really young. She starts to hear like whispers and rumors of this place called like the White Octopus Hotel. And she kind of like starts to develop an obsession with it. And then she has this like older man come and visit her that had the same name of this musician that she loved, that had got her through some very dark times. And the man gives her like this little figurine of a octopus. And he's like, everyone should have something on the birthday. And then as he's leaving, the man passes away and he's like, promise me you'll come to the hotel. And she's like, what? But after this, like, she's somewhere, I think she was in like France, and she found this tea set that was like the same kind of motif as that octopus figurine that she had gotten. And then she starts to find out more about it, and she goes and talks to this one guy who was also kind of obsessed, and he's like, oh, what did you find from there? And what was its like magic that it had? And she's like, wait, what? What was its magic that it had? And he starts telling her about the background, about how people say that the White Octopus Hotel was like this place that had like magical artifacts, that there was a paper that if you wrote on it, you could write to your younger self. And she finds out about this, and she's like, oh, maybe if I could get this paper, if this actually exists, I could write to my younger self and prevent this catastrophe that happened where her sister had died, and, you know, cause her family from not, you know, splitting apart, this, that, and the other. So this sets her off on a journey to find the White Octopus Hotel. And she does find it. And she was given a key to a room that it is said that if you can find this room and open the door, you can travel back in time to the time that it was, you know, still there, because now it's just kind of sitting there and it's decrepit and people come in and out of there and it's falling apart. And it's such a magical and wonderful book. I do have a standalone review for it, so if you have any interest in that, like any of the books that I've mentioned that I have standalone review for, I'll put the links down below to the videos for those. This is probably going to be one of my top 10 fantasy books of the year. Also, the ending is a little bit open-ended, so if you are someone who likes your books wrapped up neatly with a bow, this leaves a bit to the imagination, but I thought it was absolutely fantastic and I loved it. All right, so after that one, we are continuing on our journey in the Dungeon Crawler Carl series, and I read the Dungeon Anarchist Cookbook. I cannot recommend this series enough. If you like weird, funny RPG, D&D style stories, it's awesome. We follow Carl and Princess Donut. They are in this level called like the Iron Tangle, which is basically all these different trains and subway lines. And there's monsters that get on and off the trains. Why are they doing that? Carl also acquires what is the Dungeon Anarchist Cookbook, which he's almost on like what this is like a game show where he has to pick his prize. And he chooses this cookbook, and when he gets it, it just says, hey, this is for recipes for chicken and goblin, and it's pretty much a worthless book. And everyone's like, ah, you got a really crappy prize. And so when he opens it, and it's like, no one else can see this. The only one that knows about this is the AI in the dungeon. This is, if anyone finds out about it, this will disappear. It won't have anything in it, but edit it, add your own notes, and together let's burn it all down. And so he acquires this book, which becomes very, very helpful, but he has to not let anyone know that he has it. So they also have to find the stairwells in this crazy subway that has so many different freaking lines and stuff. There's all these different bosses, and then there's these like huge mimics and stuff. Like, what are they going to do about those? And they have to start working together with all the other people in the dungeon to like kind of figure out a map of this place and figure out how the heck they're going to get out of there and try to save as many people as they can. It's a crazy book. It was quite intense. I don't think I have a favorite yet. I feel like they've all been good books. After that one, we have a weird paranormal story called Dead First by Johnny Compton. So there is this wealthy fella, Saxton Braith, and he hires this private investigator, Shyla. He wants to know why he can't die. And, obviously she's going to be skeptical about this, so he proves it to her, which traumatizes her, and she tries to run out the door and go throw up, but the door is locked, and then she's like, I don't know if I want to do this. This is a little much even for me. And like, he had hired her because she had done a prior case where her client had thought he might be the Antichrist or whatever. And so she ends up taking his case because it would be a lot of money. It'd be helpful to her and her family and all that. So she starts digging into this, and like stuff just gets like really weird. She goes to this one hotel. She goes up to this room, and she's going to try to buy out the people that are staying there because like it was booked up, and she's like, okay, she's going to pay the people in that room like several thousands of dollars to like vacate it. There's a library in there, and there's a bunch of stuff that she could dig into that might help her find out about this Saxton Braith guy and like what's going on. Like, is his thing like an occult thing? Like, is he cursed? What is the deal? She goes up there, knocks on the door, the hallway starts getting dark, and there's weird whispery voices, and then these people are like, we know he sent you. Witchy stuff starts happening, and so she's able to like break out of this weird trance-like state she's in and like runs away, and then she runs into her ex down in the lobby, and her ex and her were gonna kind of work together on this because her ex was a psychic, which she wasn't really sure if she believed that her ex was a psychic, but then she had told her stuff that would be hard to make up that she could have possibly known, and that was kind of why they broke up in the first place. And so they start working together. And it's a weird and paranormal story, and I enjoyed my time in the pages. After that, we had If the Dead Belong Here by Carson Faust. You have these women who live in this house. There's these two younger girls. Laurel's the youngest, and then there's Nadine, the mother Aita, and their aunt Rosebud. And Aita has had a lot of death and loss in her life. Her mother had killed herself when she was younger. She lost her brother in a tragic car accident, and she has struggled with alcohol like her whole life. Her youngest daughter, Laurel, ends up disappearing. And Laurel had been talking about her invisible friends a lot before this happened. Aunt Rosebud kind of encouraged it. When she disappears, there's all these things that kind of point to like, oh, is it these weird invisible friends, like the people of the forest? And so what you have to know about these women, and they also have a history of being healers and of also being connected to these little people, these people of the forest. And so they think that Laurel has been taken by them. But then there's also this like ex-husband, and he was a horrible POS who used to beat the crap out of Aita. And it's possible that, hey, maybe he found out about Laurel because he didn't even know that Laurel existed. And then he came back and took her as a punishment to Aita. So you have this like weird paranormal part of the story and trying to see where she could have possibly disappeared to and if they can get her back, whether it's from the husband or whether it's from the little people. And it's a weird, crazy, out there story. And I really enjoyed it. I like the atmosphericness of it. I liked the writing. I liked the characters. I hated some of the characters, as in like you're supposed to hate the characters. Horrible, evil ex-husband. Like, you get mad at Aita because she just basically like kind of has given up, just is drinking herself to death. And that is really hard to watch and see, but it's just a very gritty, dark, disturbing story also of finding yourself and finding healing amidst all the broken bones and everything in your surroundings. So after that, I read an extremely weird as heck book, and that is The Library at Mount Char by Scott Hawkins. Like the whole synopsis is like, there's this girl, Caroline. She grew up in this like infinite library, forced to study under the feet of this guy who's quite possibly God, but we're not sure. Maybe. He has disappeared. And then you cut to her and she's like in a bar with this guy, and she's like, his name's Steve. I think his name's Steve. And she's like, hey, I want you to do this thing for me. And, and it says something about there's like red rubber galoshes, a tempting offer, and $372,000. And then this sets off a war for control of this infinite library. And in the infinite library is basically knowledge that if it fell into the wrong hands, it could destroy the world and everything we've ever known. If this goes a bad way, bad stuff is really going to happen. And so you also have all the children who had studied under this father guy, and they each have their own catalog of study. Some it is war, others is languages. Carolyn's is languages. And then there's another is like the beasts of the field, and then another is medicine, and there's all these different ones. Some of these kids, if it fell into the hands of the one whose catalog was murder and war, that would be pretty bad news bears, don't you think? So you have all this weird stuff happening. And then there's also the enemies of their father, too. And here's another thing. None of the children who are now adults in their like 30s can get into the library because there's some sort of weird like perimeter defense. It almost seems like a spell or magic, because if they try to go in there, they start like bleeding from their eyes, or they'll go into seizures, or have all these different weird effects. And they need to find out if the father's still alive. Did one of father's enemies kill him? Or did he just leave and go somewhere for a while? Is this a test for the kids? Like, what the F is going on? And it's a crazy book. It's an amazing story. It's so effed up. It's so weird. I would highly recommend it. And I can't even like put it in a category. Like, it's horror, it's fantasy, it's weird as heck fiction, it's magical realism. It's like, it's not one specific category. Like, I could easily say this is horror, and I could also say it's dark fantasy. I could also say it's just weird as heck fiction. Make of that what you will. It's awesome. Okay, after that, I read another like weird book, little novella. You come to the story, and there's this woman, and she's falling from the sky. And as she falls, she's slowly like reconstituting into a person, with her stuff and her clothes and her shoes. And she falls down to the earth, and she lands at the place where, for the person she'll try to like usher into the afterlife, offer them comfort, whatever. And so she gets there, and it's this like super wealthy dude who doesn't care. He doesn't want comfort. He's never done anything wrong. Blah, 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 blah. She's trying to get him to like actually admit that maybe he's done some stuff that's really jacked up the world, because he worked in the oil industry, has destroyed parts of the world, polluted rivers and lakes and oceans, and caused massive climate change, and animals are dying and crops are dying. And he's like, oh, everything I did was great. Yeah. She tries to get him to admit this and to repent, so that maybe he doesn't end up in a horrible place, which he seems to not even realize that he could be heading. I found it an entertaining read. I didn't love it, nor did I hate it. I thought it was okay. And it's a novella, so it's not too much of a commitment to time. All right, so after that, I read another Dungeon Crawler Carl book, The Gate of the Feral Gods. Bigger and better than the last. They keep getting like bigger and better. And apparently, even after this one, they keep getting larger, which, like, dang it, the large books take me forever to read. Which, this one, though, I flew through. Read it in like 3 days. I couldn't put it down. It's captivating, weird, wacky, emotional. There's action, there's adventure, there is even a little bit of romance in there. You're in this level, you're in a bubble, which is not quite a bubble. Think of a snow globe or a dome. So they're in this, there's 4 different quadrants. There is air, tomb, think Indiana Jones, the Mummy. Then there is the desert, and there's the sea. And so there's castles in each biome. In the air, there's like the warrior gnomes, and they have kind of this floating city going on. And then there's a submarine, there's a castle in the water quadrant. There's one in the tomb. There's a sand castle as well. And they have to take each castle. And once they do, the stairways will open to the next level. They'll also pop their bubbles, and they can go into other bubbles if they so choose at this point. We continue on with the story, and chaos ensues and happens. There's all kinds of crazy bosses and creatures and weird feral gods. And then there's this artifact called the Gate of the Feral Gods that like, it can open up a portal to a different place. However, as soon as that opens, usually like a feral god, no matter how long it's open, if it's like a half a second, somehow a feral god's just waiting to come through there, and they will just wreak havoc and destruction because they're pretty much like invulnerable. So what will happen? Chaos. There's all kinds of crazy stuff in there. There's like sentient ooze, a giant 2-headed puppy, a talking sex doll. The main characters in the town are shapeshifters, and also these like dromedarians, which are these like camel people who walk on 2 feet. It's a crazy book. It's a crazy story. I love this series so much. As I'm reading through the series, I'm doing a standalone review on each book, and I'm putting them into a playlist. So they will eventually all be in a playlist. I have 3 of them in the playlist. By the time this video comes out, the 4th one might be in there. I don't remember the last time I read a book series that I loved as much as I love this. I did love the Dark Tower series quite a bit. It's such a page turner. There's no lulls. I don't feel like there's any lulls in these. It's just like one thing to another of just absolute chaos and carnage and craziness. Okay, my favorite books out of all of these, there was a lot of really great ones. Like The White Octopus Hotel, awesome magical fantasy. I love that. The Library at Mount Char, so weird and effed up. It's so good. And then, of course, Dungeon Crawler Carl. Hello. I say this every video that I mention any of those books. Awesome. It was a great month. Highs, lows, up your nose, between your toes. Where do we goes? I don't know what I'm saying with that. Is that a poem? I sure don't know them. Anyway, what have you been getting into? What was your favorite reads this past month? Let me know. And if you enjoyed hanging out today, hit that subscribe button, come back, see me again, and we'll talk about more bookish things and weird stuff.